Right, buddy, we have a huge midfield update talking Conor Gallagher, CASEMIRO, as well as Adam Wharton, the likeliness of Bruno Fernandes leaving and CASEMIRO staying as well as some other things from Xerxes potentially going to Roma and even Tony potentially coming in. So Ben Jacobs did an interview today with United Stand, and he said a lot of things about the Manchester United midfield, which is something that we know we need improvement in. Tactically, we haven't been good enough. I think as a team, we've been lacking that midfield spark. And this is what he said. He said, on Manchester United sign this on in January, they'd be opportunistic. And obviously, if the right midfielder was to materialise, they can add one in January and one in the summer. If not, I think it'd be two at the end of the season. CASEMIRO's future depends and will play an impact on that. Vivell particularly likes Angelo Stiller, a name that Manchester United have been monitoring for quite some time, but they never moved because there was never a realistic possibility of him getting to leave last summer. January is going to be difficult as well, and then obviously next summer a lot will actually depend on whether the release clause still exists or whether the buyout is taken. At the moment, all indications are that Manchester United are going to be patient with Stiller, continue to watch him and then assess in a little bit this year or early next year, knowing that firing anything crazy, unexpected, nothing there is going to be possible mid-season. It remains to be seen whether or not Stiller is at the top of Manchester United's target due to uncertainty of the profile of the player the club will want, with Mainoo, CASEMIRO and Ugarte's futures unknown. On CASEMIRO staying, he said, I think so. I also think CASEMIRO might put forward, if his form warrants it, to trigger the option as well, and Manchester United would have to financially determine that if it's in their interest on the field for the extra year at that number. Also, the field as far as PSR is concerned. On Bruno Fernandes, yes, there is a release clause in theory, but timing is everything with it. And if it isn't triggered in time, he is on the market at a number that Manchester United will feel will be worthwhile. He said, my gut feeling, speaking to sources at the club, is that you won't get a mass exodus of midfielders. So if they think Bruno's going to go, you're more inclined to extend CASEMIRO deal. If CASEMIRO departs, you're more inclined to fight to keep Bruno. If CASEMIRO goes, Manuel Ugarte stays. They're not going to open the door and let Ford walk. On Conor Gallagher, yeah, I think so. Gallagher's probably the most likely in January because he's the most feasible, and anyone they might have to either overpay or have to play really agitate for the move. On Carlos Baleba, even though Carlos Baleba hasn't started the season in the same form as last campaign, there's no indication that he's fallen into that Evan Ferguson star category where in a heartbeat he goes from a 100 mil player to someone loaned or potentially sold. Brighton still feel come the end of the season Baleba will be settled and consistent and will be worth well in excess of 100 million, but they're not a giving at that price or anything because that's not how they rate. On Wharton, he's enjoying life at Palace. We don't know his price availability until ultimately those talks between Wharton and Palace take place. Is he going to sign a new deal? And like Semenyo, could there be a release clause in it? But if everything stayed as it is, Palace were not able to get Wharton to sign a new deal, then I come back to my previous reporting, which is I'm told there's kind of a gentleman agreement that Wharton can lean for a Champions League club for somewhere in the region of 60 million, but I stress again, Champions League club. Gallagher's available in the January market. Manchester United interested. Their preference is a loan with an option. Atleti might be open to a loan with an obligation, but if they weren't open to a loan over the summer, they would sanction a permanent sale. But they basically want to favour him 50 million. If Manchester United will return for Baleba, they might lowball Brighton, and we'll see how that thing works out. At this stage, I wouldn't say they've called it interest. I would just say there's absolutely nothing expected Manchester United can do in terms of their pursuit. In terms of the pursuit of Carlos Baleba, let the players focus on this season, wait and come in the summer and finally get a specific ballpark out of Brighton to start negotiation. If it's 120 million, they may walk away. So a big update there on the midfield. I think in terms of exits first, we need to look at that. I think it'd be pretty embarrassing if you see a place where CASEMIRO stays and Bruno Fernandes goes. I just don't think that should happen at all. I think on the midfield, we know it's a position that we need. Obviously, Stiller is someone who is rated, but we still don't know about his ability in the Premier League. Obviously, Adam Wharton, he's gonna want to go to Champions League clubs, probably same to his Baleba as well, and that kind of puts the pressure on Manchester United to get into those Champions League positions, which is not going to be easy. In terms of Baleba, we know United have an interest in him as well. The price, again, is going to be something that is a huge block. But for a lot of these players, Wharton, Baleba, Anderson, they're all going to be very, very expensive. Obviously, Conor Gallagher is a more cheaper alternative option, but he is more of an attack-minded player. I think if you're looking at a deep-line playmaker, obviously you have your Stillers, your Belabers, your Whartons, and you would probably say Anderson in there as well, who's very good at playing both roles. I think certainly looking at the midfield is something that we need. Again, in January, we're probably not going to sign anyone. I think if we were to sign anyone, it would be Conor Gallagher on loan. I don't think anything permanent will happen in January. I think you look at the summer, then you have the likes of Kobbie Mainoo. Is he going to leave or is he going to stay? Depending on how the remainder of the season goes, he could potentially go on loan in January. Then that gives you the option to bring in a midfielder. What happens with CASEMIRO? Does he extend for a further year, or does he leave? Does he leave at Manchester United? Bruno Fernandes. So it all depends what happens next summer. I think the one player who I think will probably be here that's guaranteed is Manuel Ugarte. I don't see a way in which he leaves. Ideally, you would want to sell him, but with Bruno's future uncertain, Casemiro's uncertain, Mainoo's uncertain, I just don't think he's going to leave this summer. But that's an interesting midfield update. Obviously, nothing advanced on any players yet. They're still looking at their options. They're still monitoring Stiller. They're still monitoring Belieber and Wharton. Nothing on Elliot Anderson, but again, it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, Vavell is someone who has a key part in the recruitment at Manchester United. He was the one who made us sign Benjamin Sesko. So obviously he's going to have a key part to play in the scouting. There could be a way in which United go for Stiller because he's the more younger, well, not the more younger, but the more cheaper option. With the potential that he can go and be a top player in the future. But that is the latest on the midfield. Again, still just talks at the minute. Now on Xerxes, he could potentially be leaving for Roma. Roma are the leading candidate, and there's a strong possibility that Evan Ferguson will be sent from Roma to Brighton in January, and then Roma will move for Xerxes. West Ham is a strong possibility, and they're definitely under striker in January. And then you have PSV. I think Lille would come into the conversation depending on how the season is going. And if you go back to last summer, they really like Xerxes. So Xerxes will have clubs interested in signing him. There's no doubt about that. He's a very talented young player who has a lot of potential. Even Tony has been linked to Manchester United as well. And the reason that he mentioned him, and also we spoke in terms of last time about Mitrovic, is that there will be opportunistic names that are a little bit older that have Premier League experience. And I think Manchester United, if they did anything mid-season, will be more inclined to go down that route than get a young, unproven player that if they move mid-season might not get minutes anyway. So even Tony could be a good option. I think he's a very experienced striker. Again, it'd be difficult getting him out of Saudi, but he still is a very, very good technical player. In terms of the striker situation, again, it all depends on whether Xerxes leaves. So yeah, let's see what happens with that. But that has been your midfield update. Belabor, Wharton, Angelo Stiller as well could be on the radar, but Conor Gallagher as well. I don't think there's anything to develop on what we've known already, but it certainly talks a beginning for a midfielder. It won't be a mass exodus. I think you'll probably see potentially 2 leave and 2 come in. I think you look at what we did with the attack this summer, getting rid of Sancho, Anthony, Rashford, Garnacho, Højlund. That was kind of an exodus, and we brought in 3 new players. So let's see what happens there on the midfield, but certainly something interesting. But Labour update, Angelo Stiller is still wanted by Manchester United. Could we see Ivan Toney come in mid-season? Let's see.